Canaan, a servant of servants. Introduction. Welcome to another video. Today we will be looking into the history of Canaan, from its origins to the modern day. The Canaanites were an ancient people who descended from Canaan the son of Ham. The Canaanites lived in present-day Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Some of the primary records used to understand Canaanite history are the Amarna letters, the Old Testament and Scarabs. But because of the lack of records, there is no Canaanite chronology. Part 1, Origins. The origins of Canaan can be found in Genesis 9:18 through 27, which says, "And the sons of Noah, that went forth of the ark, were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Because of Ham's sin of looking upon his father's nakedness, Canaan, who was Ham's son, was cursed with being a servant of servants unto his brothers. This verse would ultimately describe the history of Canaan, with Egypt and Hatti ruling over them and using them as puppet states. Around 100 years after Noah and his family got off of the ark, the Tower of Babel occurred, and the Lord confounded the languages of the world and dispersed the people of the world. Canaan and his family in these times would settle in the Levant. I believe that Canaan settled near Jericho, because it is considered to be the oldest city in the Levant. This land that Canaan chose was an extremely important region in the ancient world, because it acted as a bridge between Egypt and the rest of the known world. And that is why Canaan prospered through trade from the Bronze Age even to the times of the Roman Empire. Now the borders of ancient Canaan can be found in Genesis 10 verses 19 and 20. These borders were from Sidon in Lebanon, to Gerar and Gaza, to Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim to Lasha. Lasha is known as Cairo today. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim were destroyed by God, in Genesis 19. These are early Canaanite borders, before and during the times of Abraham, because Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed in his time. But Canaan had cities as far as Syria in the 12th century BC. The Canaanites traded by sea and were known to be great seafarers. They traded with Egypt, Mycenaean Greece and other nations in the Mediterranean and the Near East. Because of constant trade, foreign nations such as Egypt and Akkad would influence Canaanite language and culture. The Canaanites would even imitate Egyptian pottery and visual arts. Government. The Canaanites were never unified under a king, but for most of their history were a collection of city-states, each with its own king. This form of governance was extremely common in the ancient world, especially for divided peoples. The Canaanites only unified when they were in danger of being wiped out or conquered. Canaan was also the lesser power in the Levant for most of the Bronze Age and would be subject to larger nations. The main powers that ruled over Canaan in the Bronze Age were the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Hurrians and the Israelites. Egypt ruled parts of Canaan during the Late Bronze Age, and before that some pharaohs campaigned the land. The Amarna letters give insight on Canaanite-Egyptian relations and how the Egyptians ruled over them. In a particular letter between the pharaoh and a Canaanite king, the pharaoh expresses frustration in the Canaanite king who kept peace with a neighboring king, who was pharaoh's enemy. Pharaoh told his vassal state's king that if he chose to keep peace with the other king, he would smite his whole family with the axe. This Canaanite king was named Aziru and his kingdom was called Amaru, which was located in Lebanon. Also known as the Amorites in the Bible. He would later switch allegiance from Egypt to the Hatti Empire and his land would be a battleground between the Egyptians and the Hittites. Battles. The Battle of Megiddo fought between Thutmose III and the rebel coalition of Canaanite states, which was led by the king of Kadesh, was one of the first battles recorded in history. In the pharaoh's 23rd year, which is believed to be 1457 BC or 1482 BC, he defeated the Canaanites, causing them to retreat to the city of Megiddo and sieged the city. According to Egyptian records, 8,300 Canaanites were killed and 3,400 captured. Egyptian losses were 4,000 with only 1,000 wounded. This victory allowed Egypt to control northern Canaan and launch campaigns into Mesopotamia. The Israelite exodus occurred in 1446 BC and 40 years later the Israelites led by Joshua conquered much of ancient Canaan. The first city Joshua took was Jericho. First the city was spied out and then Joshua and 40,000 men encircled the city for 6 days. And on the 7th the walls fell and Joshua slaughtered all of the inhabitants of the city. Except for a woman and her family, because she helped the spies spy out the city. The fall of Jericho can be read about in Joshua chapter 6. After conquering other important cities, kings of northern Canaan along with other kings formed an alliance in fear of being wiped out. Joshua took the city of Hazor and killed its king. This city was the head of the alliance. Joshua 11:10-14. Although much of Canaan was conquered, the Canaanites were never wiped out or fully conquered because God told the Israelites, "Know for a certainty that the Lord your God will no more drive out any of these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until ye perish from off this good land which the Lord your God hath given you." Joshua 23 verse 13. They disobeyed God, who told them not to cleave to the nations of Canaan but to be set apart from them. Judges 2 verses 1-3. The era of the Judges was a time when the Israelites fell away into idolatry and in these times the inhabitants of the land would afflict them and rule over them. The Canaanites were extremely wicked. Their vile practices and worship of false gods was the reason why they were conquered by the Israelites. But the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land would pervert the children of Israel with worship of their false gods. Some of the things the Canaanites did can be read about in Leviticus 18 verse 22, which says, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind, as with womankind, it is abomination. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith, neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereto, it is confusion. Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled which I cast out before you." It is in these times, the era of the Judges, that Ramses II, Pharaoh of Egypt fought Muwatli king of Hatti in Kadesh. Egypt and the Hatti Empire were constantly fighting for control of the Levant and in Kadesh these two great powers clashed. In his 5th year, Ramses II went into Canaan with his army and captured 2 spies, who gave him false information. Ramses, who believed the Hittite army was hundreds of miles away, split from his main force and was ambushed near the Ounz River. His men fled back to Egyptian lines. Then his army advanced and each side suffered heavy losses. Ramses then retreated. Although the Egyptian account of this battle favored the Egyptians and Ramses played it off as a victory, this battle had less to do with the Canaanites and more to do with the powers that controlled them. Ugarit was one of the wealthiest Canaanite cities in the Bronze Age. Unlike other Canaanite cities, Ugarit did not have to give their sons to the Hittite armies, because they paid a gold tribute. The city was supposedly sacked by the Sea Peoples in 1190 BC. It was rediscovered in 1928 where they found tablets which told stories of ancient Canaan. This city was located in Syria. Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were Canaanites who were considered to be the greatest trade civilization in history. The Phoenicians built cities throughout the known world at the time which operated as city-states, even though they had an opportunity to create an empire. There is thought to be 80+ Phoenician cities from Lebanon, Turkey, Cyprus, Morocco, Italy, Spain, and Libya. These cities acted as a complex trade network. Because their homeland was in the Levant, the Phoenicians had to fortify their cities, and city-states would often work together to fight off invasions while still maintaining independence. It wasn't until after the Bronze Age collapse that the Phoenicians were able to create a trade monopoly. Tyre is perhaps the most famous Phoenician city-state because of ancient myth, and Alexander the Great sieged their city in 332 BC. Carthage is also a very well-known Phoenician city-state that began as a colony in North Africa and became a great empire which challenged Rome's rise in its early years. The city was destroyed when Rome sacked it in 146 BC. 3. What happened to the Canaanites? The Canaanites lost control of the Levant in the latter part of the first millennium BC. But they are mentioned in the New Testament. Simon the Canaanite was a disciple of Jesus Christ. And there is a reference to a Canaanite woman in Matthew 15. After the 1st century, the Canaanites seem to have fallen off of the map, but recent studies have shown that modern-day Lebanese people are direct descendants of ancient Canaanites. So, thank you for watching. Peace.